Well, first and foremost, I'm Steve Madison. I want to welcome you all. We have a good agenda tonight, focusing, as we should be these days, on fire and our electrical rates and system, and we have some great guest speakers. I want to start, as I always do, by just talking about what we've been working on at City Hall, and then invite you all to have questions later for each of the speakers or for me or throughout the meeting. And I think first and foremost on this topic of fires, it really has our attention at City Hall, as you can imagine, with January 7 fresh in our minds, and even losing Nina Chomsky in a tragic fire at her home in Linda Vista just exacerbated that. I want to let you know that I did spend a few days in Washington, D.C. with our fire chief, Chad Augustine, and some of the Rose Bowl staff. And the purpose of the trip was really twofold. One was there is something that we started called the Historic Stadium Caucus in Congress. And what the Rose Bowl did is, as the granddaddy of them all, historic stadium that needs upkeep and maintenance and protection, has historic importance and status. They identified other similarly situated stadiums, the Cotton Bowl, college stadiums around the country, and then went to the members of the House and the Senate who cover those jurisdictions and engaged them. And it's now a very active group of representatives in Washington. And so we probably met 14 or 15 different electeds, most of whom were from California, but by no means not all. And they were from, Democrat, Republican, Independent. There was no real partisan thing to it, because everybody loves these venues, these historic stadiums. And I have to tell you, I've been going to DC for decades, beginning back when I was in the Department of Justice, and I've never seen it as bad as it is now. The divisiveness and name calling, and everyone wants to investigate everyone else and throw them in jail. And of course, the tone at the top is a very important part of that, in my opinion. When you have the commander-in-chief name calling and spewing social media nonsense, it doesn't set a good tone at the top. But the positive thing is, when we would walk into these offices, again, didn't matter which side of the aisle, they all breathed a sigh of relief, and they said, I'm so happy to meet with the Rose Bowl today. This is great. What can I do to help? And, we realized, when you're at an event at the Rose Bowl, you're sitting in a circle, you're looking at one another, and you're sharing an experience. And it's not like there's one side for one political party and another side for the other. Obviously, the teams have their viewpoints, right? But it's just something very, very positive that we should all be able to get behind and share experiences. I think it's a uniquely American experience in many ways. And so we were lobbying for the Rose Bowl through the caucus, but then we were also meeting with other electeds from California who aren't as involved. And we met with leadership as well, the leadership of the House. And we want resources for our fire efforts, sort of with the lead argument being, look at what we did January 7th, and wouldn't it be great, for example, to have a permanent, professional, state-of-the-art fire headquarters at the Rose Bowl, have our fire department. You may not know, our fire department presently is headquartered in a bank building on Marengo and Walnut. We rent office space, for our fire department. And they deserve better, and we deserve better. And if ever there were a time, a window of opportunity to go for that. So this administration is punishing Pasadena with some of their policies and trying to withhold some of our funding. But I'm even for that, I'm optimistic that we're gonna see some fruit from that effort and be able to do something really, really exciting for our fire department or for the community. We've been focused on the arroyo quite a bit, as you can imagine, because of the obvious risks to the arroyo. And I'm proud to report that we approved an additional $1 million for brush clearance in the arroyo. And thank you. And the budget's tricky because it's a big beast, and if you move one part, you've got to look at another part, and then if you say I want more apple pie, somebody else will say I want more cherry pie, and it's very difficult to get big changes to the budget. But we pulled that out, and then I made the motion, and my colleagues unanimously supported that. And so we're going to have all sorts of efforts going forward, even vendors for goats. Goats are used quite effectively to manage brush. And I also want to be mindful about not, what do they say about a bad haircut? You can always cut more, but you can't put it back. I don't want to take native vegetation and pull it out, because there probably is a lot of native vegetation that does help maintain the hillsides there, and actually helps prevent fires in a way. So we're going to be thoughtful about it, but I just want to let you know we're taking that very seriously, and I think the entire council is with us on that. There's a piece of legislation that you may have heard about called SB 79, and it is another bill by Senator Weiner from San Francisco, who has had a lot of affordable housing legislation, but unfortunately, from Sacramento, it's very hard to manage the local land use and zoning and affordable efforts of every community in California. But that's what happens, and this one is a bill that we are opposing, just as we strongly support affordable housing. I think we are an example of a community that gets that and does it, and doesn't need to be sort of forced to do it by Sacramento in a very ham-handed way. If you look at a map, and we have one, and we'll push that out to you, put it on our website with the city, and then push it out to you, but it would cover much of Pasadena because it provides for unfettered development around transit. And of course, we have the light rail transit that goes right up through the city and then out east. And so, and I think the bill allows 9 stories as of right. And we're not talking like just at Lake and a Villa or something. We're talking like St. John in West Pasadena, down along. I mean, it reaches that far over because of the radius that is used to measure it. So we're strongly in opposition to that. I think our neighborhood associations have been asking everyone to weigh in to do what we did, write the governor, email the governor, ask him to please not sign that into law. So hopefully that'll have, my sense is the governor has been tacking to the middle on a number of issues where most of us live, kind of in the mainstream, and so I'm hopeful about that. I think I've reported to you before on the 710 freeway stump that I've been very, very disappointed at the slow pace that we've been moving, and I'm cautiously optimistic that now we're going to start to pick up speed, and we have a workshop with the City Council on the 20th of October. And then at EdTech, which I serve on the next day, Economic Development and Technology, we'll have another discussion sort of to digest the council workshop and the views that are expressed there. It's just, we are now in the 4th year of owning that ditch, 50 acres, fee simple, and we don't have an approved plan or financing or really even a vision yet. And we need to do that. It's not going to please everybody. But leadership is saying we need to go there, and not everybody may be unanimous, but when we get there, most of us will be really glad that we did. And indecision is benefits no one, frankly. So excited about that. Next week, we're going to start reviewing mock-ups for the Colorado Street Bridge, the latest iteration of a suicide barrier for the bridge, and we'll report back about that, and I think we're making that available to the public as well, although I don't have the details. If I get them during this meeting, I'm not sure they've been announced yet. I think we're starting with a smaller group of council members and staff and other stakeholders, and then we'll go from there. I think you're aware from a meeting many of you I know attended, as I did here in this room, about Linda Vista School. We're disappointed to see the district release an RFP for development to offer up the Linda Vista School site for development. And both the mayor and I went to their board meeting and asked them to table the matter for 90 to 120 days, just to allow us, the staffs, to have a dialogue, see if there's a way that we can acquire the park, see if we can preserve the preschool that's there, see if we can work something out. And, I sometimes joke, I'll say over my dead body, and the other folks will say that can be arranged, Steve. And that was it. They listened to what the mayor and I had to say and approved the issuing the RFP that night. And I will give credit to our board member, Yarma, was voted no, as did Kim Kenny. She voted no as well. So I want you to know that. I don't agree with Kim about everything, but she is very thoughtful and very smart. And I think she saw the folly of the district doing this in such a cavalier way. I get it. They've got a $30 million budget shortfall because of the paucity of students that they have and the excess of school sites that they have. But I don't think this is the answer in Linda Vista. And so I have now formally on the record at council asked that we look at the Measure I and J money that we convey to the school district every year. Remember, those were the measures intended for public safety, kind of looping back to fire and police. And but the second measure, so I was whether we would do a parcel tax, basically a property tax increment to provide for public safety, parks, and other city services. And then J was not, it didn't mandate it, but it allowed us, and it expressed a view by the community on whether we should support the school district with direct funding. And that's always been a struggle for me, because if I take your tax dollars with one hand, then I should be accountable to you. And for me to be accountable, I have to have oversight over how those funds are spent. But if I take it with the other hand and hand it to another body, another agency, where I really don't have any, we have 1 or 2 joint meetings a year, but we have zero authority over how the district spends those money. That's difficult. That's a challenge for me. But ultimately, I was persuaded, as I think all of us were, that the need was so great to support the district that we would do that. And I'll tell you, I have carried their water every single time. Every bond initiative I've supported politically, personally, financially. The Measure J, we started at about $6 million of city funds, and we're now giving them $12 million or more a year. And I'm sorry, but if we're not going to be good partners on the Linda Vista School site, then I think we need to look at that as an option here. And so I hope we don't have to go, all the way with that. I hope the district will pull over and ask for a dialogue. But I mean, our city manager, the mayor, myself, about this formally by the district. They kept it very low profile, and I think the feeling was they just didn't want any community input. They didn't want the city's input. They just wanted to get it on the agenda and pass it, and that's really unfortunate. So, but I want to say also, it's not just sort of that nuclear option in terms of the funding. It's also, we're going to continue to be rigorous about the process there with that property, and we've already asked our staff to work up, what's doable, what isn't. They have some leeway as a school district under state law, but we also have a fair amount of control in terms of zoning, neighborhood compatibility, and the like. And so stay tuned on that, obviously. Quickly, I just want to mention, with regard to Caltrans, so the 710 property, the 50 acres, we own that. It's really on us now to come up with a vision and pursue that. And then there's the issue of the properties to the south of that, which they're in the process of relinquishing now under the Roberti and Portantino legislation. And it's not going as smoothly as I had hoped, but we're making some forward progress. You probably saw that the city has purchased a number of the properties, and we just listed the first 10 for sale. So on those, we're selling them at market rate and then using the money to invest in affordable housing. There will be some properties in that sort of St. John, Pasadena Avenue block to the south of Sequoia, for example, south of the Trench, where we will have some on-site affordable. We're talking to Habitat for Humanity about that, but the vast majority of those homes will be sold, probably substantial remodel work. They're historic properties, so there's a limit to how much change you can do, but they'll be upgraded and then probably sold again, and we'll get families living there and kind of try to restore that neighborhood as best we can. There are two other issues, the nonprofits that are in that corridor, and I'm sure you can think of them, Ronald McDonald House, the Waverly Garden, Sequoia School itself, and others. They too have rights under the legislation to acquire the property for the value in which it's been used. Not the value if you assume 1,000 housing units or something. So, and they're in the process, and we've convened a number of meetings with all of the nonprofits to discuss, share information, and collaborate about dealing with Caltrans. And we've had sort of one step forward, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but we hope to make progress on that. The city has 2 properties that we're also trying to acquire as part of this program, and that is Arlington Garden and then the community garden. And I'm committed to seeing us acquire both of those and make them more permanent public space for the community. And then finally, I was delighted to attend the opening of the Keck building at Fair Oaks in California. Mostly delighted that the traffic won't be at a standstill any longer. And it's a remarkable facility, I'll tell you. It's not a facility that you want to visit because it's treatment for very ill patients, but the providers, those physicians and staff, we're talking 500 jobs in that building, and that's no small thing for a city, believe me. And it was a heavy lift in terms of the ingress and egress, the traffic and all, because those are busy streets, but I think it's going to work really well. And it's a really first-class facility. And then finally, I think you heard that not only are we going to have soccer in 28 now at the Olympics here at the Rose Bowl, we're going to have men's and women's semifinals and finals. And I don't know a bigger event in the Olympics than the finals of soccer. That's going to be amazing. And then we just received the Olympic diving to happen at the Aquatic Center. And this was kind of funny because I heard that the LA City Council was voting and that they had voted to convey the Olympic diving event to Pasadena. And I called the city manager and I said, don't open that gift just yet, because I know that we're going to need $10 to $15 million in infrastructure improvements. I think our tower for the high meter diving at the Aquatic Center is closed right now. It's not structurally sound. So we don't have bleachers there, and diving doesn't draw huge crowds, but you need some room for spectators, and so that's going to have to be provided. So our hope is LA 28 has been fairly penurious with communities in terms of legacy funds, that what they will provide funds for is security, but we will really need help with the facilities there, and hopefully it'll be the kind of thing where we'll have the benefit of those facilities, upgraded. And diving, I'm told, is like literally on the first day of the Olympics, and then the semis and finals of soccer will be toward the end of the games, so there won't be a conflict in terms of traffic or security or all those other. So that'll be pretty exciting. I really am trying to wrap up my comments here because I want to get to our speakers, but I can't tell you how excited I was to hear today about Magic Johnson being the Grand Marshal for the Rose Parade. I mean, you will not, I've met Magic a few times, and there's just not a more positive, enthusiastic person, you know, and sure, all the Grand Marshals are great, but, you know, some of them have maybe a little more energy than others, but I think it's really fabulous, really exciting. So kudos to the T of R for that decision. I do want to recognize just generally our public safety officers that are here. I want them to always know that in West Pasadena, we have your back, and we love our firefighters and our police officers and all of our public safety officers. So rather than introduce them all by name, can we just give them a hand, please? And apropos of that, I think I'll ask Gabriel Alberian and Karina Wakefield to come up. Gabriel is a FireWise volunteer and really kind of as I understand, a coordinator, regional coordinator for this FireWise program. I'm still learning a lot about it myself, but we've already formed, I know, at least one FireWise group in West Pasadena, and it is a volunteer-driven effort for fire prevention and safety. And then Karina is a fire inspector with our fire department. So she's passionate about educating the public and doing all we can to, you know, to minimize fire danger and fires themselves. So thank you both, and come on up.
My name is Gabe Alberian, and as Councilmember mentioned, I'm a volunteer with the National Fire Protection Association, which is a nonprofit organization which started this great program called FireWise USA. And before I get into the core tenets of the program and the benefits, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about me and how I got involved in this organization as a volunteer. So in 2018, the Woolsey fires came raging through my community in Westlake Village, California. The Santa Monica Mountains were ablaze, winds were going at high speeds, and embers were flying everywhere, much like what was happening here in Altadena. Well, one of those embers, which can fly for miles and miles, happened to land in a rain gutter full of debris. Debris is what we say leaves or any other combustible material in and around one's home. Well, that ember, that one solitary ember, ignited all of that combustible material, the dry leaves, and unfortunately the structure. And I live in a townhome community that are attached structures, and it not only affected that one structure, but 3 others as well. So we had a loss. What ensued after that was a 4.5-year rebuild project that cost $7 million. And in the process, our community was dropped by farmers insurance. Our policy at the time was only $60,000 per year and rose to $624,000. So 1,000% increase in our policy. The only the only entity that would insure us was the tertiary market. One like Lloyd's of London, not even Fairplan at the time, was hitting the limits that we needed for our townhome community. Naturally, being a leader, I decided to take upon the role of president of my HOA, bring all of those issues to an end, and step back for a moment and said, well, what can I do to keep my community safer from wildfires? And I learned about this program, the NFPA FireWise USA program. And then I got my community recognized through this program, and then stepped back again. I keep on stepping back, right? I stepped back again and I said, well, just because my community has this designation doesn't mean fires are going to skip over my community. What can I do to help my greater city? So then I got 10 other communities to sign up for this in Westlake Village. And then the NFPA's called me. You know, you get this call from the Wizard of Oz, it seems. This woman named Michelle in Boston with a great Bostonian accent and said, we hear you're doing great things. How do you feel about becoming the regional coordinator for all of LA County? Yeah, I live in a city of about 15,000 residents, and now I serve 10 million, which is great, and happy to do it alongside our partners in Ventura County as well. So here we are today. I'm happy to partner alongside Pasadena Fire Department, who's leaned in a huge way, and Councilmember Madison and his team. Justin, thank you very much as well. This is such an important topic, fire prevention, and I know Councilmember and Justin, you both knew it was Wildfire Prevention Week. That's why you brought me, so well done. And even if you didn't, well done on that too. So we're going to start with the about the program, and I'm going to tell you great things in terms of insurance relief as well that this program and fire prevention measures actually make when taking fire prevention measures or home hardening measures at your home can do. If you can go to the next one. So the benefits of FireWise USA are about educating homeowners on emergency preparedness, creating more fire-resistant communities, but then also insurance savings. And I really want to stress that the FireWise USA program is a free education-based program. Our goal is to empower homeowners to be safer from wildfires through education. It is not a mechanism for pointing fingers at others and saying what they're doing wrong, but rather a way to educate people on what they can do right. So with this, we'll go to the next slide. With this great insurance savings, the California Insurance Commissioner's Office has leaned in through the initiative called Safer from Wildfires, which is what we're identifying in this blue box. So all this information is contained in a paperwork that I have in the back, and you're welcome to meet me and say hello, and I'll point you to the right information that you'd like to see. But very much as it says in the blue box, the more you do, the more you can save. And all of the bullet points that you see there are things that we practice in fire prevention to harden your home or protect your home from wildfires. So we want to make sure one has a Class A roof. I'm going to skip the next one and then jump to it. A non-combustible 6 inches at the bottom of walls, like skirting is what we call that. Ember and fire-resistant vents. So soffit vents have become very important. As these embers fly around, we want to make sure that our soffit vents or our attic vents are not the 1/4 inch that have been installed, but rather 1/8 inch or even finer. Maybe a 1/16 of an inch, because this will prevent the intrusion of those embers hitting some of your combustible material within your attic area, like your insulation. And a lot more of these other things are outlined here in this blue box, which my colleague Inspector Wakefield will go into on an individual household basis. But of particular importance are the last 2 points. So it says a neighborhood can form a FireWise USA community. And that can contribute to savings from your insurance premium, as well as becoming part of the fire risk reduction community. So cities, counties, and local districts can become part of that. In fact, all of LA County is part of that, so everyone here is eligible for a discount. All you have to do is Google Fire Risk Reduction Community, Los Angeles, and a certificate will come up. It's a PDF document that you could then send to your insurance agent or broker. Now, I want to briefly touch on the second point, and I know Inspector Wakefield will go into it more, but creating a 5-foot ember-resistant zone. This has become very much a part of our conversation here, not only in Pasadena, but throughout the state of California. As you see in the white box, Governor Newsom executed an executive order as a result of the Palisades and Eaton fire to expedite this area we're calling Zone 0, or 0 to 5 feet from one's home. The initiative is pushing for non-combustible material within 5 feet of home. The Forestry Division is tasked with giving us clear direction on what can and cannot be included in that area by the end of this year. Now, just because it's going to be enacted or the direction will be given by the end of the year doesn't mean you have to immediately take effect of that information and practice it in your property. In fact, we have a 3-year education period or leaning in period. So the enforcement of that Zone 0 area will start on January 1st, 2029 for existing properties. Many times for new construction properties, it will begin as soon as January 1st of this coming year. But for existing properties, January 1st, 2029, and the enforcement will happen when you have the brush clearance inspections happen at your property on an annual basis, typically in May, June. Now, commonly I get asked, well, what about trees in Zone 0? I don't want to come to you and say, gosh, I want you to get rid of everything in Zone 0 or 0 to 5 feet. We like trees. And Councilmember Madison was actually talking about native trees in the arroyo and in our homes. We love native species like oak trees. Oak trees are actually, they've lasted the test of time through floods and fires, and any ember that goes through their canopy actually extinguishes those embers. So we like them, we want to embrace them. But there are other trees like pine trees, eucalyptus trees, Italian cypress, and palm trees that we want to be incredibly conscious of because they have oily properties that promote wildfires, unfortunately. So what we say is we want trees trimmed 6 feet up from the base and cut back 5 feet from the roof line or 10 feet from a chimney. That will be proper practicing in wildfire preparedness as it pertains to trees. Now, we want everyone to also be incredibly aware of the debris that the trees also promote. The debris often hit our roofs and often hit inside our rain gutters. I don't want you to fall victim to what happened in my community. Make sure you have leaf guards in your rain gutters and clear any debris on top of your roofs, especially when you get those notifications of red flag wind advisories. And typically those come 3 days before the winds rage through. So we'll do the next one. All right, so speaking of insurance discounts, many of us have resorted to the FAIR plan. This was supposed to be the insurance policy of last resort. For many of us, unfortunately, it's become the insurance policy of only resort. And I'm so sad to hear that on behalf of my community, your community, but there are discounts available off FAIR plan, off your wildfire portion of the FAIR plan policy, if you take a lot of these action items that myself and Inspector Wakefield talk about tonight. So when looking at FAIR plan, and this is just FAIR plan, you can get 5% off for immediate surrounding protections like vegetation and debris removal, no combustible sheds within 30 feet. Defensible space must be maintained, like trimming trees, and there must be an ember-resistant zone maintained within 5 feet. That will qualify you for up to 5% savings, and the 10% savings include items that must be in adherence are Class A roofs, non-combustible 6 inches at the bottom of exterior wall or skirting. Vents must be ember and fire resistant. Like I mentioned, the 1/8 inch vents that go into your attic area. And windows must be dual paned or greater, and eaves must be enclosed. That will qualify you for an additional 10%. And then, the great reason why I'm here, you are qualified for an additional 10% if you are within a FireWise community. So what is a FireWise community? We'll go to the next one. So FireWise community, it takes 3 steps really to become a successful FireWise community. The first is we have to gather 3 to 5 homeowners to lead the effort in a defined area. A defined area in a FireWise community is 8 to 2,500 homes. Townhomes, condos, single-family residence, whatever it may be, 8 to 2,500. Once you've established an area within a map and a few leaders who will lead the effort, then we can move to the next step. I'll work alongside you with this. We do a community assessment of where that identified community stands today in terms of fire resistance. And again, this is where our great partners in Pasadena Fire Department come in. I'm a qualified entity for the CAL FIRE, as well as other designations that allow me to do this assessment, and then Inspector Wakefield will come along and do it, and we will take a look at your community. We'll understand and give you a baseline understanding of where you stand today in terms of fire resistance. We'll look at things like your roofing materials, your soffit vents, siding, skirting. I know you've heard these terms over and over and over today, but these are fire prevention efforts. And then we'll give you a score that exists within buckets of 25%. This is, again, just a baseline understanding of where you stand today. If you score lower, that's okay, because we look to improve on those numbers. You're not going to not get recognition. Everyone becomes recognized. I want to make that clear. Even if you check all the boxes that are less than 25%. This is an understanding of where we can improve and how we can educate our homeowners to be better. Again, we can't do better unless we know better. So once we have this baseline understanding of where we stand today in terms of fire resistance within our community, we then create, we'll go back one, we then create a 3-year plan, and that 3-year plan, again, talks about how we can educate our homeowners on these efforts. But what's great about this 3-year plan is it doesn't just include home hardening efforts and vegetation management, but it also goes into emergency preparedness. So we'll work alongside our partners at the fire department to identify evacuation routes. We'll talk with the police department on any security measures. We'll also really want to educate our homeowners on document management and asset management within their households in case they fall victim of a structure fire. So all of these things are included to bring your community together, to educate, and to push forward in fire prevention in a meaningful way. The great part of the program is we always provide free resources, free flyers, free brochures, speaker events from people like myself, Pasadena Fire Department, and other fire safe councils and resource conservation districts, which are wonderful. And even the San Gabriel Valley COG is leaning in a big way. So you'll have access to that wonderful community of fire prevention people. And the city of Pasadena is leaning in on getting more grants as well, available to our individual households and to our communities. One of the biggest things I like to really stress too is there's an organization called the Resource Conservation District of the Santa Monica Mountains, and I'll share this with you, Justin, so that you can share it with all our constituents here. The great part of this is that the Resource Conservation District of the Santa Monica Mountains, and I know we're closer to the San Gabriel Mountains, however, their jurisdiction hits here, they will come to your home for absolutely free and do an assessment of your home, your individual property, on all of the items we're going to talk about here tonight, Inspector Wakefield and myself. They'll provide you with a report, a digital report on where your individual property stands in terms of fire resistance, and that report is only for you and the entity that does it, the Resource Conservation District. It does not go to insurance companies. It does not go to government entities. It is meant just for you for educational purposes. And if you get anything out of what I'm talking about tonight or what Inspector Wakefield tonight is talking about, please take advantage of that. It's a free program and meant for you to be educated on how to be better. Oftentimes I get asked, what's the best thing that I can do to help prevent my household from wildfires? And my answer is always education. We can't do better unless we know better. And make sure to educate yourself with science-backed materials that help you keep your home safer from wildfires. One point I didn't make earlier today about Zone 0 is that the reason why this area has become so important in the conversation of fire prevention is that 90% of fires start within 5 feet of homes. That ember that's flying around from the nearby mountains may land on some combustible material or drop leaves that are at the base of your home. It then may ignite that combustible material, then raise to that plant, then to a shrub, then to a tree, and then perhaps to a vulnerable spot in your structure, and unfortunately ignite your structure. So we want to be really mindful of that 5-foot zone and make sure we're well educated on measures that can help reduce the incident of fires within it. So before I close, I get asked a lot of questions about this program and fire prevention, many times we talk about this being more work or more rules. Again, this is not a rule-based program, it's an education-based program. We really want to stress that. More money, we want you to take advantage of those grants that are available. We want you to take advantage of the resources that Pasadena Fire Department has. But there's also legislation being considered at the state level that will provide tax relief to our homeowners who engage in home hardening efforts. We want to really encourage our state legislature to approve that so that we can do this at a cost, not a cost prohibitive manner to our homeowners. And the last thing is, well, what if I don't want to do it? Or what if my neighbor doesn't want to do it? And when I say it, I mean fire prevention measures. Built in within the model of FireWise is an understanding that 33% of residents will lean into the effort, 33% of the residents will not, and 33% will be in the middle. We want to encourage those 33% who do want to do it and the 33% in the middle to really push forward in the efforts and lead by example. And quite honestly, I could say this as a volunteer, the 33% who don't want to do it will be sorted out by their insurance companies. Because what we're oftentimes seeing is that insurance companies are using tools like Google Earth to do their assessment of properties. They're sending out inspectors at the cost of the policyholder. And if anything that the homeowner is representing is anything other than what they're seeing, they're dropping you from coverage. So they will have to lean into the effort, especially during this education period that we're talking about with Zone Zero. But I really want to press that this is really an important part of who we are as a community. And we'll finish it up here, but this is my contact information. So what I offer up to my community members is I will take you through the entire process that we talked about. Yes, it's on you to find the community members that will lead the effort and to identify the area, but I will help you alongside Inspector Wakefield to do the community assessment, get that complete. I will help you create a draft of the three-year plan that's going to push you forward for education and provide you with the resources with that. That is my commitment to you. I do not want you to go through the rigmarole of finding these resources, and it took me 6 months to do. I want to help you be successful. This all starts with each and every one of you. Whether you do it at your individual household or part of your bigger community, it takes all of us to be part of this effort and all of us to change the narrative of how these insurance companies are viewing us, how CAL FIRE is seeing us as very high fire severity zones. We can make a difference together. And if we all do this together, our council members and our greater city will give greater consideration to fire prevention efforts throughout the city because they're realizing that our homeowners and our communities are doing more. So with that, I want to introduce, and I'll take questions afterwards. We'll all take questions collectively. But with that, I want to introduce Inspector Wakefield with Pasadena FD, who's going to talk more about what our individual households can do to protect their homes from wildfires. Thank you.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Inspector Wakefield with Pasadena Fire Department, and it's really nice. I've done a few of these presentations for several of the faces I see here tonight, so it's good to see you all again. For those who don't know me, I work with the Fire Prevention Bureau within Pasadena Fire Department. My role is to perform some of the fire inspections for state-mandated inspections, but my favorite part of the job is this, where I get to educate my community and empower all of you to keep yourselves safe until my guys can get there. We can only do our job as well as you can prepare yourselves. So whether that is hardening your home, which is what we're going to be discussing tonight, or through pre-planning for an emergency, getting a go bag, working with Prepared Pasadena, which is getting to know your neighbors and figuring out 2 ways out, knowing where your utilities are so that in the case of an earthquake or a fire or an emergency, you know how to shut them off to keep my guys safe. But with that being said, we're going to discuss some home hardening. Go ahead. So a little bit of fire science. When it comes to structures igniting during wildfire, 60 to 90% of them are home ignition. So like Gabe was saying, about 90% of embers that land and start fires are within 5 feet of your home. When it comes to being able to mitigate these factors, home hardening will reduce the amount of combustibles surrounding your home to limit not only the ignition of fire, but also the spread. Yes, please. That's okay. So some of the fire-resistant building features that we have are roofs, windows, and siding. When it comes to roofs, Class A roofs are non-combustible material that will keep your roof from catching on fire. With that are windows as well. Dual pane windows protect the heat so that they don't burst due to pressure or heat, which reduces the amount of oxygen introducing to a fire, so it'll limit not only the heat but the intensity of the spread. And then stucco. So the siding portion of it, it's a non-combustible siding that protects the walls from spreading fire as well. Vents are kind of like a vacuum. So imagine embers are flying, right? They have to go somewhere. They have to land. It's not uncommon for them to go into vents. That's where the metal mesh screen that Gabe was talking about previously is so important. You can do 1/8 of an inch, or even better is 1/16 of an inch. Science shows that 1/16 of an inch does not impact the ventilation of that area, but it will reduce, depending on the size of the ember, it'll bounce off. In addition, eaves and soffits, it's enclosing those boxes. As you walk around some of your homes, you'll notice that there's eaves that are open. It's closing those off so that there's nowhere for like birds' nests to go up there. Embers will also land there. And then fences. Fences around your home oftentimes are wooden burns. As we see in CAL FIRE, they recently posted a video on YouTube. I welcome all of you to look at it. And they basically compared a home with a fence, wooden and metal. Metal was 5 feet away from the farthest part of the fence to the structure of the home. And then the wooden fence went all the way to the home. The intensity and the how quick the fire spread was unbelievable. So I highly encourage you to look it up on YouTube. It was a fascinating video. So here is an example of where combustion can be from a roof to a rain gutter. Depending on the style of your roof, if you have it slanted, embers are going to fall down that roof, and they have to go somewhere. So a lot of times they go into gutters. It's super important to get that middle grid that we're talking about to cover. Gutters are, if they're not cleaned out often, that's where the combustible and the fire spread will continue. This grid will keep, leaves from falling in there, and in fact, they'll jump off, so it'll definitely limit the spread. These are the eaves we were talking about. Those are the boxed eaves, so being able to flatten it will also prevent embers from going into those holes on the right side. And then the fences, as you can see here, on the right portion is where you would have the metal fence. That's what's going to give you that distance so that if a fire is spreading from the left side going to the right, it'll stop. Okay. Go ahead and skip that one. Thank you. So one of the examples that we did recently was in Bungalow Heaven. For those who know Pasadena, we have several historic landmarks within our city. They still have to go through some of the requirements for keeping themselves fire safe. However, they are not as strict as what many of you know as the high fire severity zone. The high fire severity zone is a map that's given by the state. And basically what the state does is they're able to figure out, based off of topography, weather, past history, they figure out how severe is this area and what risk does it really pose to fire. So within this area, high fire severity zone and very high severity zone. So those are questions that we'll be taking after as well to figure out what that means to you versus some of the other areas of Pasadena. So Zone 0. Zone 0 was mentioned by Gabe. Zone 0 is coming. It's not here right now. So what does that look like? Zone 0 is from 0 to 5 feet of your home. It's eliminating combustible material. So that's not even just including wood pile, right? It's also including removing of vegetation from the first 5 feet and replacing it with something like gravel. Go ahead. That's okay. Zone 1 is what we currently have right now. So removing vegetation, dead vegetation, combustible vegetation from 5 to 30 feet. This also includes branches. We have lots of beautiful trees that grow super far tall, but they go over chimneys. They have to be 10 feet away from chimneys. That's where heat is starting to come out, and after a while it'll dry it up and cause an ignition. So our municipal code has a very strict policy on flammable weeds, trees, and other types of vegetation. This is just something for you guys to have available to you. If you ever have any questions or concerns regarding some of the areas that are close to you, this is what is and isn't allowed. I'll also leave my information at the end so that if you do have any of these concerns or questions, which I typically get a lot of, I can help you navigate those concerns. Here are some additional resources. In the back, I have 2 different sheets for you. One is a low-cost retrofit sheet that will give you a little bit of education and empowerment on how to obtain these home hardening possibilities, but to where they won't break the bank and they're completely achievable. In addition to that, I also have additional resources for you. So things like mitigating high fire severity, also figuring out what vegetation is good in California and which one aren't. I have a direct link to the California website of vegetation, so you know what will burn and what can protect my home. These are some of the others as well. Go ahead. This is an example of what I've provided for you. So going over everything that Gabe and myself have talked about is something easy for you to take home and have a direct link available. If you have any questions or concerns, this is my supervisor's information. If you have any questions about some of your neighbors, your own home, you want one of us to come out for you, depending on what area you're in, we'll send one of our inspectors. But we are here to serve you. It is a pleasure to be able to go out and make sure that not only you feel secure at where you are, but also safe. We're here, we're in your corner, we're here to serve you, and it's just so nice to be able to see you all again. So thank you for your time.
And before we begin, too, I want to kind of talk about some common questions I get asked. I know many of our structures in Pasadena are wood structures. They may have wood shingles or may have wood siding. And we've talked a lot about non-combustible siding like stucco. Wood can be just as effective in fire prevention if maintained. So we encourage our homeowners to get wood rot and termite inspections on an annual basis, see where the vulnerabilities exist, seal it, and paint it. Any paint will do. There's no such thing as fire-resistant paint, and if anyone tells you otherwise, don't believe them. So that's what we want to encourage for our friends who have wood siding. Sorry, I just wanted to add that before any questions came up.
We've got a couple more speakers. So let's,
sorry.
No, we're good, but let's see if we do have questions. And by the way, I just want to thank you both. You're so enthusiastic about this, and it's really great to see. Thank you very much. Yes?
Question.
Will you summarize the question?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So her question was, there are concerns regarding some of the state-mandated inspections for the high fire severity zone home inspections. She was saying she was concerned based off of some of the homes that she's seeing. Some of them had passed when they shouldn't have passed. Is that correct? Perfect. So a little bit of history. The required state-mandated inspections of high fire severity zones occurred because of the Dixie Fire. There were several homes that were not being taken care of and up to date, and so it affected many other homes that were keeping up on their property. There's 2 different things that we do when it comes to high fire severity zone. When it comes to the inspection process of it, that's only from the front. We cannot legally enter through the back. From my experience, the majority of the lack of maintenance is typically in the backyard. So if we can't go into the backyard, we can't do anything unless it's a legal complaint. At that point we can, because then neighbors invite us into their backyards and show us what their concerns are. When it comes to the front, that's typically all that we can see with those inspections. However, what I do encourage is if you ever do go through walks through your community, go ahead and email me. I'm happy to go out and take a second look. My job is not only making sure that your neighbors are safe, but also making sure that you feel secure in where you're doing, because if you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing, you spent thousands on trees, you just said, I want to make sure that you feel safe being with the people around you as well.
Okay, yes, sir.
So his question was, are we going to be able to provide him any of this information? Absolutely. I will be able to provide you whatever you want, whether it's the material that I have in the back. I have 2 sheets. But any questions or concerns that you do have when it comes to what's available, the additional information are direct links. Also, the state fire marshal's website is incredible for defensible space, home hardening, the annual inspection checklist, as well as AB 38, which is the buying or selling of a home in a high fire severity zone. It goes into all of that.
So included in these resources that will be provided by Inspector Wakefield and myself through Justin, through the Resource Conservation District, they have approved vendors who've gone through a course, who will be certified to tell you what is a Class A roof, what is fire-resistant mesh, what is all of those things, as opposed to just finding someone perhaps on Yelp or otherwise and them asserting that it is and maybe it's not. So it's important to go through these certified approved lists of vendors who can in fact tell you what is fire protected and what's not. But thank you again. We want to, again, stress alongside Inspector Wakefield that it takes all of us together to be a part of this effort, as individual households to lean in on the efforts that Inspector Wakefield mentioned, and very much the community efforts that I really advocate for as well. But if we all do it together, we can all keep our community safer. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks so much, Gabe. Really appreciate it. That was really terrific. Thank you. And I do want to get to our next module here. We have David Reyes is here, who's our Director of Water and Power at the city. David is kind of like a Swiss Army knife. He was the head of planning and permitting. Then he was assistant city manager. Now he's running a water and power utility. He's kind of like the Mookie Betts of the city of Pasadena, can play any position and plays it at a very, very high level, believe me. He's a good friend and we work together very closely. So, and then David, will you introduce your staff who are going to help you present? Great. Can we welcome David Reyes? Thank you. Thank you. You have what you need?
Yeah, thank you, sir. Okay. So I just want to thank Councilmember Madison for those kind words, but his leadership on the council. We as staff, we take direction and we take policy direction from the city council. Sure, the state has laws that we have to follow, but by and large, our city council provides that policy direction based on your needs. And, I was lucky enough to be with Water and Power during the fire because I got to see how wonderfully talented our team is. And I do want to recognize our Chief Assistant General Manager who's in the back, Stacy Takaguchi. She's in charge of water. So raise your hand, Stacy. And we have our AGM for External Affairs, Jen Gasmayo, and Lynn Chamowitz, she's our CFO. She's actually going to make the presentation tonight. But what I wanted to share is a couple of things, and I'll do it very quickly because I know it's getting late. But one is we are, as a city, we are highly rated in terms of our reliability for electricity. When the fires happened, within 3 days, we had 100% of power restored everywhere in the city, including to those homes that were evacuated. And for the most part, we didn't have any power loss. And yes, we were lucky and spared in the fire compared to Altadena, but we have a largely reliable system, and that's because of you, our ratepayers. We are not-for-profit, community-owned water and power utility, and we're very blessed. But to maintain that reliability, it does take infrastructure, it does take needs, and the cost of power is rising across all sectors. And we're here to talk not on a great subject, but we do need to raise rates. It's been a while since we've done a study, and we are coming to an end on that study based on some council policy direction where we are. Lynn will share some of the factors that go into what we do. But I do want to make it really clear that the policy direction that we get from City Council is so important. We're on the cutting edge of so many issues in Pasadena, and one of those is climate change. The City Council has adopted a resolution, and it states that we are to be carbon-free by 2030. And that's an ambitious goal. The state's goal of carbon-free by 2045, we're anticipated to hit that in 2028, 18 years ahead of schedule. And that's probably going to be the best in the state. And we're going to raise our hands, and we're going to be really, really happy and thankful that we have you as residents that are supporting us. And none are more important than the table in the back. That's Pasadena 100. Cynthia Kennedy's raising her hand. I see her there. They've been so instrumental. This is a ground up effort, a grassroots effort that we follow. And to be in Pasadena means that you listen to the people. And so as we get into some of the discussion tonight, I just want you to keep in mind that we are here to serve. We are not for profit, and everything that we do, it goes back into the utility in terms of any ratepayer increases. So with that, I'd like to introduce Ms. Lynn Chamowitz, our CFO and AGM over Finance and Administration.
Thank you. I'm going to give this presentation has a lot of information, and I will share it after this. But we are, as David said, a community-owned utility, and we have so many goals that are dependent on our community as well. It's not all just about the money. I'm also going to talk through some programs that we have towards the end as well, and what we want to hear from you as customers and ratepayers about some of these changes, and potentially other options that we can bring to you as incentives for making this work together and having basically win-win, because we are a community-owned utility. So this is our mission and vision. Whoops. Okay. Just keep going. So as David said, I don't want this to be doom and gloom, because we are in an excellent position right now as a utility. We've been well managed for a very long time. So we're AA rated for the credit rating agencies, which is the highest for a California public utility. So we're sort of the best of the best. We're leaders. We're also, what is on the bottom left-hand side shows our capital investment and improvement program. So we have been planning and making investments back into the infrastructure so that we get good returns on our investment. So every dollar that we put in, we really want to maximize and make sure that in the long term, we keep the rates where they are. So what it means to be a locally owned, community-owned utility, the best part is that you have more control and you have more say, because your city council determines the rates and sets the policies for how we determine the rates overall. So if there is something that concerns you, you can come directly to us. That's not the way that it works with investor-owned utilities. You don't have the access and the opportunity to have these kinds of dialogues to make sure that we're reaching our goals together. So if we go to the next one, I think this is really important to understand, is that it's not all about the money, but that's really what PWP, or our power utility, was founded on. Was the community of Pasadena came together and said, Edison, you're charging us too much money. This is not working for us. We want another option. We want a better option, which is a municipally owned utility. And that we keep that in mind, and that's driving all the decisions that we make as well, is that whatever we're doing, we want you to be able to count on us, but we want to make sure that you can also afford the electricity and you know what options are available to you in a situation where something becomes unaffordable. This is about our total information about our customer base. So on the left-hand side is the number of customers. So we predominantly have residential customers if you look at the count of customers. But if you look on the right-hand side of the pie graph, as you can see, most of the electricity in the system is consumed by the commercial customers. So it's something that we have to take into account, and we balance, and we throughout this whole process, we determined what is the cost to serve our residential customers and what is the cost to serve our commercial customers. And we have to make sure that that is all aligned. And that is the primary driver for a cost of service study, is to look at which of these components are costing everything. We don't have a profit margin built in. We're just trying to make sure that it's fair and distributed the way that we receive the costs. So some of this is just background. So we are ahead of the curve. We're also leaders. We're affordable, but we're also leaders in the space of getting to 100% carbon free by 2030. So these are currently where all of our power resources come from. Power resources come from all over the West to Pasadena for the most part. We do have local generation here at the Glen Arm Power Plant facility, but most of our resources are imported into Pasadena. And this, throughout the next 5 years, will look drastically different as we achieve the carbon-free goal. So part of this is there's another plug for another effort that's going on with the Water and Power Department, which is the Optimized Strategic Plan. This plan is now available for comment online as well. So it's really the strategies to get us to carbon-free by 2030. So that's another thing that we really want to have conversations with y'all about. There's also a clean energy tracker. Being a community-owned utility, we are extremely transparent with everything we do, and that is everything is up and available online. So as we approach 2030, we will have that available for you. You can see the data yourself. You can talk to us, ask us questions about it. We really want to hear from you. And if you're curious about it, we would love to talk to you about it. So the next part is how we actually get the electricity for you. If you're not familiar, most of the poles and wires are actually not poles and wires. If they're underground and you don't see them in your neighborhood. But like I said, many of our power resources come in to the city, and they're distributed to your homes or businesses through underground sub-transmission systems. And then on the bottom left-hand corner is the Glen Arm Power Plant. That's primarily the only local generation that we have now. But we are working on battery energy storage. So that's going to be another resource that we can use to manage electricity and give everyone that cost benefit as well for having the local generation. We're also a transportation electrification leader, and we're working hard to make sure that everyone has that information and the data that they need to make good decisions about their usage. There's a lot of ways that you as a customer can use energy at different times, maybe to make little tiny behavior tweaks that will benefit both us as a utility and you as the ratepayer as well. So this is just a little bit about what you see on your bill. So Pasadena Water and Power bills for all of your services for the city. So we bill for water, sewer, refuse, as well as electricity. So on your electricity portion of your bill, it's broken out into these different 5 categories. And so each category is charged a different way. And I like this approach because it's pretty simple to see what you're getting charged for, because the names are not very clever. They really say what we're charging you for, right? So the monthly customer charge is for the customer service functions that we provide to you. It's a fixed fee on your bill, so you get charged the same, so it's by account. The grid access charge is the same. It's what it costs us to connect you to the rest of the grid. The other pieces of it are the energy charge. That is likely the largest component of most people's bill, but it's a per kilowatt hour charge, and we collect based on how much that energy supply costs us as PWP, and it's passed through to the customers. And the other 2 are the transmission and distribution charges. So the transmission's the big stuff. So getting it to the city of Pasadena is what the transmission charge is, and the distribution is then distributing it to the homes from the bigger systems. So as you can see, Most of the money that is spent on the utility is for purchasing power and operating and maintaining the system. The actual fuel and gas is a very smaller component. Also, interest expense, depreciation, and amortization. You know, I'm an accountant, so I just love to say those words. But really, that's that extra that gets invested into the system for capital expenses. So our capital expenses are really those big expenses that are going to be sort of generational investments into the system that we need to recover, and they're not going to be sort of your annual year-to-year expenses. So this has been a journey. It's not about the destination, it's about the journey right now for this electric rate study. And we've just been making sure that we've been really methodical about it so that A, we're reaching out to everyone to make sure that none of this rate increases comes as a surprise, and B, that you know why this rate increase needs to happen. So the next slide. Again, our rates are very competitive and they're gonna stay that way. We are not alone in the utility community. Everyone's costs are increasing. This is just a reality of the world that we live in. So this is just a snapshot for a point in time for a certain usage customer. So this is 500 kilowatt hours a month usage, just looking at us compared to our neighbors. The reason that everyone's rates are increasing are basically these four main components. A, the cost of equipment just keeps rising. We've had everything from supply chain shortages. After COVID, the prices spiked for everything. Now we have, economic policies. That's really hard to predict where that's going, but it's going up. The cost of power resources are increasing as well. And then our power grid needs upgrades. There's a lot of very old stuff in the ground. So our priority is to make sure that you can count on us as an electric provider. So that is very important, that we are making sure that we're making the upgrades before it becomes a problem. So this is just an illustration of sort of all of the different components of the electric system and how the costs have been increasing for the next year. The next slide is a graphic of the power resources side. So, some of these increases are not, flat or steady. They're becoming sort of exponential for all of the power supply that we're providing. And then this is another snapshot in all of the money that we're spending to invest to make sure, again, that you can count on us for services. You as Pasadena residents, as compared to our neighboring utilities, don't have to worry about power outages like your neighbors in other cities might do, and we're going to keep it that way. And this is sort of what we can control, is sort of the strategies that we use to keep rates low. We can control costs. Grant funding is something that as a municipal utility, we have access to that our investor-owned utilities don't. So that's sort of free with strings money that we can apply for to offset rates in the future. And the final thing is debt funding. We're making investments that are going to be lasting for a long time, and so we want to make sure that we're spreading those costs out. I know you, because you live here today, don't want to pay for something that someone, 20, 30 years down from the line will be benefiting from. So this is just the process. I'm going to leave this with you. It might be gobbledygook to you, but it means something to us. It's a process. It's a balancing act, and that's sort of the exercise that we went through. The main thing, too, is that we're beholden to bondholders when we issue debt, so we really look at our credit rating agencies, and we want to make sure that we have some of these ratios, and everyone knows that we're a good investment in Pasadena as well. This is the sort of beginning of the conclusions of the electric rate study. So we went to Municipal Services Committee and City Council, and they asked us to develop a 2-year rate plan because there's a lot of uncertainty. And so, doing a long-term plan that's likely going to be off was not the best idea. So we've developed that and we've calculated that, and we're estimating that effective system-wide, so this does not, it impacts the different customer types differently. So that's the one caveat that I want to make. But through all of this, and in the end, we are going to be developing a calculator like we did for some of the other rates so that you can go in and understand specifically with your usage how this will impact you. So that's going to be something that's going to come out after we have rate recommendations that are approved by City Council. But this is sort of just a preliminary to let you know, and we want to keep talking to you. I hope that in the end of this, you sign up for the What's Current newsletter, and that you sort of follow us on any channels and any way that you want to get information, because this is evolving. And then skip over that. It's a really cool graph. I'm sure you'll like it. The next slide. So this is the point where we design rates, and that's where we want to hear from you. Why? Because the rate design piece is where having your input of programs or incentives that would be helpful to you would be beneficial. And that's the thing. So I like to talk about the free stuff that we provide to you. We have a lot of energy efficiency programs. I don't know, has anyone taken advantage of any of the energy efficiency audits? Okay, great. It can be all of you. It's free. We will go into your house. We will identify areas where you can save. We will give you money to make those improvements. So that's a really win-win. The cheapest energy is the energy that you never use in the first place. So this is just the public and participation objectives. Like if you want to talk to your neighborhood association and go into all those graphs and details, I'm more than willing to do it. We want to make sure that none of this comes to a surprise, as a surprise to any of our customers. And this is the big portal. So on the portal, we have sort of questions tailored to getting feedback and the pulse of the community of what they would like to see more of, what they want to hear more about. You can request us to speak to you. And also on the feature is feedback on the optimized strategic plan as well.
Thank you, Lynn and Jen, very much, and David, thank you. Thank you so much. I do want to give Water and Power a shout out, because think about being in a business where your revenues derive from selling a product that you're trying to discourage people from using. And that really is in the electrical space and probably the water space too, for sure. We just, 2 meetings ago, I think, we approved an increase in the amount of solar credit you can derive if you put solar on your home. It's a complicated initiative to do that. It's not inexpensive, that's for sure. There are some subsidies and tax credits, I hope, still around. But now we're going immediately to 150% of your prior use. And the department has discretion to provide 200% if, for example, you show that you bought an electric vehicle. And what I'm excited about is the battery technology that, it won't be too long, hopefully, until you can have an electrical vehicle that will be able to store energy, and then you can put that back into the home or the grid, if you will, when you need it. So it's worth a thought, and I'm not trying to take business away from you, as you know, but thank you so much. But let's see if we have one more question, and then we've got to move on because we're almost out of time. Yes?
I have a comment. Last night I was on Linda Vista after dark, and I noticed that the street lights were much brighter. And I know that you had that project that's been going on maybe for 3 years, but Linda Vista is much better lighted now than it has been in a long time. And the street lights look wonderful. Thank you, Steve.
We have had quite a problem with the theft of copper wires all throughout the region, I think, right? Yeah. Because there's a valuable market, black market for that, unfortunately. But okay, thank you so much to Water and Power. Great presentation. Any questions? We have just a couple minutes, but anything that you want to ask me or anybody? All right, great. Thank you.